Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with your hosts, Jefferson Belfort and Brian Hernandez. Brian, how are you doing?
Oh man, Jeff, we're back. We are back. It's been a super slow off season, but I'm doing really well. I'm very excited to do this episode. Um, yeah, Jeff, how are you? It's been a while.
I'm pretty good, with that time off, been focusing on work, been
Hmm.
prioritizing some other stuff in my personal life.
Yeah, for sure,
But
for sure.
always feels good to be back on the pod, and especially for the 40th episode. It feels
Yeah,
amazing.
it really does. And for all the listeners, definitely like we always talk about whenever we miss an episode, we're trying to keep it to a minimum. I think with news being slow, a lot of stuff in our personal lives, even like I say for myself, of getting to the wiring down of planning a wedding and everything. And I came in here when I was like, oh, I just got engaged, one of our early episodes, and now it's about to go down. But hey, some news piled up. I'm very excited to get talking about it today. Yeah, man. Let's do this.
Exactly. So, to start off the topics, we have the KD request revisited. Then we will go into LeBron James and his extension, making him the highest earning NBA player ever. The NBA schedule has been released. And then Chet Holmgren and his injury in the crossover Pro Am League. And lastly, Knicks offer has been revealed. Are you ready, Brian?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
All right, perfect. So starting off with the KD request, yeah, the new developments in there. Well, not as new right now, but as we're moving through the summer, um, this is the newest update we've gotten on the trade request. Is that KD met with Joe Tsai in London and reiterated his trade requests, but also added a new wrinkle to the request saying it's me or it's them, and saying the them being Steve Nash and Sean Marks or himself. So Josai has a big decision to make. Brian, where do you stand on this one? Are you team KD or team GM and coach?
So I guess before I even get to that, the other part of this is so of course that this came up like August 8th, so not super new and everything, but there hasn't been a whole lot. We never got to talk about this. But also afterwards, after the Sharon's report came out that like Katie requested all this and it's either them or me, Joe Tsai comes out like a few hours later on Twitter and tweets out word for word, our front office and coaching staff have my support. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. Now, so me personally, Joe Tsai, is obvious to me that says he's siding with all, Sean Marks and Steve Nash. That's where that's kind of looking like it's going. To me, I would probably lean that way as well. I think it's so I'm signing with the ownership and everything, mainly because the Katie situation, the Kyrie situation, all that stuff, it just kind of has not worked out. It really hasn't in the sense of this power dynamic of Katie and Kyrie want some, you know, decision making power when it comes to all these big decisions. And that didn't end up working super well these last couple years. And now you have this situation where Nets ownership and front office is trying to take the power back. Katie and Kyrie doesn't seem like they really like that. And it's messy. And I don't think there's really any way to fix it. Now, is Steve Nash the coach you want? No. Sean Marks though, like I feel like Sean Marks has actually done a good job. There's just too much ties between Joe Tsai and even Steve Nash and Sean Marks, like all three of those guys, they seem like a cohesive unit. And I just don't think it's gonna that part is gonna shake out and change. Where do you stand? Because I know you're a big Steven Nashville hater.
Oh man, no, I don't like the Steven Nashville show. So I will say that I'm right in the middle. I
Yeah.
don't care for either side in the sense that obviously like I want KD to still be on the Brooklyn Nets, but I
Yeah.
mean like I just think that the way they're going about it, both sides, is just so petty that it almost feels like it's not really about basketball right now. It's just pettiness that's being thrown around, right? And my biggest issue that comes from the ultimatum is that the funniest thing is if he went about this a little bit more quietly, I don't know who gave the report out, right? But
Yeah.
whoever gave the report out, if it was Kevin Durant that did that, like you're essentially saying that you didn't want that to happen. Because we're like you're not giving Joe Tsai any power to really make that decision because he looks bad if he doesn't side
Yeah.
his team, right? You said they're cohesive. Yes, they are a cohesive bunch. But is it a cohesive bunch for the better? No, it is not because we have seen what is going on lately. I just think that the issue that comes from it is there has to be a middle ground. If there's a casualty in this, I think the casualty has to be not Kevin Durant. It has to be Steve Nash. I was going to say Steven Nashville, but it has to be Steve Nash that winds up
Yeah.
becoming the casualty in this situation because realistically, what the Nets are lacking is a leadership presence, right? I always, in my mind, like to liken what Steve Nash is Steve Nash is to the Nets what Aaron Boone is to Yankees. Is he's there to appease um, egos, personalities, make sure that it's a conducive working space. But when it comes down to X and O's, obviously Aaron Boone has gotten better as a baseball manager, but Steve Nash is going the opposite, and it doesn't seem like he does. He just doesn't seem like a guy that's supposed to be coaching right now, and it makes sense. We've seen guys like Jason Kidd come into the league and not run the calls at first at the beginning of his career, but I think that's I think the difference between Steve Nash and Jason Kidd is that Jason Kidd kind of has like personality that like he's gonna question someone or he will have
Yeah.
enough room to question someone. Where it feels like Steve Nash truly doesn't have that. And I think that that's the biggest issue of having someone be like a player's coach on a team when he can't even really advocate for better out of the team because it just doesn't seem like it would even receive it well. So the casualty in my mind keeps on coming back to if we go into next season and Katie's still on the team, Steve Nash might see his way out of there like mid season or something like that.
Yeah, so I agree that like if there's anyone to make a casualty to get out of there, it's Steve Nash. Um, doesn't really seem like the right guy that's fit for the job. I have heard that like on the net side, they feel like he hasn't gotten a fair shake, and with all the injuries and all the drama and all the stuff that's been happening, even with when they had James Harden, like look how many games the James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving actually played together. It was what, less than 20? I don't remember the exact
16.
number. Yeah, 16. Like so, we blame a lot on Steve Nash, but there's a lot of others like Joe Harris, Kyrie and the vaccine and all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's gone wrong in this situation. So I can see. where you can not give some blame to Steve Nash. But the real question that I have is because it seems like Kevin Durant wants, or it has been said, Kevin Durant wants both Sean Marks and Steve Nash out. So you're saying Steve Nash should be out. Are you also saying Sean Marks should be out?
I haven't been happy with some of the stuff that Sean Mark has done recently,
Yeah.
but still, I think that every decision is typically in the NBA is made with compromises, and that's why I say the best way to handle this is the single casualty being Steve Nash. Is you meet in the middle. We understand that, like, even if he didn't get a fair shake, still, I would put it comparing it to the coach that they could have had in that time. Look at what Ty Lue is doing with a similar situation and how he was able to galvanize his team, and he hasn't had his two superstars for a while, right? And still, I feel that that's a more cohesive, conducive situation than what the Nets have, you know? And that's where it goes back to, yeah, you can say stuff about you didn't get a fair shake and everything, but some people just need to, if you're a coach, you're expected to prop up the right people, right? So in this case, it doesn't seem like he's that guy that can do that.
Yeah, it just I can see it similar to where, like you mentioned, of Jason Kidd, that now on his he went a bunch of different places, assistant coach for a bit. Now he's a head coach again, and he's looking like to be one of the better head coaches in Dallas. I could probably see a similar situation happening to Steve Nash. Like I don't necessarily know if he's gonna be if he's a bad head coach, but I think he definitely needs that more experience. Would like to see him actually become an assistant, even though he's had like really good assistant coaches under him this entire time helping him. But yeah, it's just interesting of because like you say, it's not really about basketball. It feels it's a power dynamic thing right now, and I don't know. I kind of feel like this whole entire time I just don't see Kevin Durant necessarily getting traded, even though it's just messy. Mainly, or at least until it gets even more messier, because the Nets asking price right now seems to be pretty insane. And it's just above what everyone else wants to actually pay for someone like Kevin Durant. It's not like no one wants Kevin Durant. No one wants to give up every single asset that they have for Kevin Durant. So that's where it's just the prices just don't match. And it doesn't seem like the Nets are going to budge. I really don't see any other team budging as well and outbidding where everyone's standing right now. So it feels like something has to change.
I beg to differ with that
Okay.
because a guy of that talent, there's a few in every generation in my mind of guys of that talent that, if you pluck them from where they are, you put them into another situation, they instantly are in consideration for being a contender, right? Those three guys in this generation right now feels like Giannis, it feels like Kevin Durant, it feels like LeBron James, right? So two of those guys are never, I don't think they'll ever be hitting the trade market, right? Like they won't ever ask to be
Yeah.
traded. We've seen in LeBron's whole career, if he's made his bed, he's gonna sleep in it, right? Um, and Giannis seems like a loyal guy, so we'll never know like what the asking would be for those guys. There's just never really been a guy of this magnitude be on the open market. So like that's where it's like you're people may think it's a crazy ask, but think about it again. Realistically, think about it again. How many people have you seen? How many people of this magnitude? That's like saying Jordan, even at age, Jordan won a ring at 36. Jordan asked for a trade at age 30. Let's just be even a little more realistic. At age 35, when he won his fifth ring, if he decided, you know what, I'm up out of here, I'm out of Chicago, like, what do you think the asking would have been back then too? Like, it would have been insane. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same as what you could potentially ask for now, because I'm just thinking about it in comparison of that era. But you realistically know that he hit the open market, everyone is going to have to pony up something big to get
Yeah.
Michael Jordan. Like, you could do it. You could go down the list. You could do that with Magic Johnson in the '80s. You could do that with Bill Russell's in the '60s. You know, like those type of guys. If they ever ask for a trade, which is, yeah, they wouldn't ever ask for a trade. But
Yeah.
if those guys asked for a trade, it would have been, you need to move earth and water, to sea and water, sea and
Yeah.
water, land and water, land and water to get these guys, and that's how I feel about Kevin Durant at this point.
So I will say though, like, so I don't disagree that like the caliber of player that Kevin Durant is, but I think we've seen, even as like a team as the Nets, of Kevin Durant alone isn't going to win you a championship. So when you have an ask of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, both of your guys,
I
you
don't.
need,
I'm
yeah,
gonna tell you
okay.
this now. I don't believe that was a real report. I don't
Okay.
think that they're that crazy to think that anyone would accept that. If that is
Yeah.
actually a real report, then the Nets just knew they don't want to trade him, and they
Yeah.
just don't want to say that they don't want to trade him.
So
So
I'll even go to like, so I agree with that. I mean, that kind of sounded pretty ridiculous. Maybe they do want that. I mean, a lot of the reports is like they want every single thing that a team has. But if you think about someone like the Suns, of, you want all like these young guys plus Devin Booker. So then afterwards it's like, all right, now I have an old Chris Paul and a older Kevin Durant as well. And it's like, is that going to win me a championship? It's Kyrie and Kevin Durant so far hasn't gotten it done. So that's where it's just like, these teams want to give as much as possible, but still keep enough that they believe guarantees them essentially a championship. And that's where the two sides don't really come together. And that's for me, looking at it, of, you want, like, for what the Nets want, because the Nets are not going to necessarily tank because you guys don't have your picks. So that's why you want so many good players. But people, like all these other teams, can give you so many picks. It can give you a young budding star, but they just need enough to actually still win. And that's where it makes it difficult. And then, yeah, I'll let you if you want. What you
no,
think?
I think this hits everything about that.
Yeah.
Is where my last remarks on it is, I don't think it happens. Like,
Yeah.
there's no realistic situation where it happens, because I see on the side of where the Nets went. You say the thing about them not necessarily wanting to tank. I understand that, but like, let's be real. It's majority of those picks are pick swaps with the Rockets. And
Yeah.
are we really gonna believe that the Rockets are going to be that much better than the Nets? And
It's
even
true.
if the Nets uh, tanked for a
Yeah.
few years, they would be right there with them. And very
Yeah.
well, the Rockets could be winning the number one seed. The number one pick in those situations. So it's that doesn't really get me as scared about like that mindset of it.
Yeah.
But I do see why they want to remain competitive, because they're in a highly competitive market where, if you are competing for even the playoffs, you're turning a profit, right? So, thinking about the business side, it makes sense what they would want to do in that mindset. But you also keep in mind that don't want to just don't want to just get someone that you think that could, because you can't find anyone that's going to replace KD, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not going to get someone that replaces KD is
Yep.
what I would say. But at the same time, I think that it should be more of a deal that's built around having a mixture of things, not just you want to have one thing or the other. Like, I want to have draft capital, so we're going down this route. Or I just want to have younger, I want to have like winning ready guys, right? Like win now guys is what they're saying. Like
Hmm.
you could say you want that, but like realistically the best trade you're going to get is going to be a compromise of both of those things. So like if they were actually willing to make the trade, I think they would be more keen to understanding that. And we've seen trades where I've scratched my head about Sean Marks giving up a guy and value wasn't completely given right back. So it's not like he doesn't know that. It just seems like they're playing this game of saying we're trying and we're not really trying.
Yeah.
You know?
No, no, I 100% agree. And even just if you think about the whole factor of the logistics of having Ben Simmons on your teams, blocking a lot of trading for some young stars, it's just I really just don't see it happening until, like you're saying, maybe asking price goes down a little bit, or Kevin Durant makes this even messier. Like even then, it just makes it so hard. I've been saying this whole time. I kind of want to see how this team goes. I wonder if they're hoping of, Ben Simmons looks really good that first preseason game. Maybe Kevin Durant starts thinking otherwise. Like, hey, maybe we got a good situation here. I don't know, but
I
maybe
don't
then
remember
they.
who said it, but I think there's a world where like he reconciles during like training camp. And I don't think it was Zach Lowe. It was Tim
Yep.
Bontemps that mentioned like like it's starting to play out like when Kobe was ready to go in '07, and they're fleshing it out to him being traded to the Bulls, and he wound up not going to the Bulls, right? So it's starting to feel like that's what's happening right here. And they even mentioned it was a lot more messier than what's happening here. And
Yeah.
Kobe went on to play 6 more years for the Lakers after
Yeah.
that. So we'll see what happens. Go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to LeBron James signing his extension. So, LeBron James he's 37 years old, about to turn 38 in December, I believe. And on, I want to say August 4th, he became eligible to sign his contract extension. Now, he did not sign this contract extension right away. And I'm surprised this wasn't a storyline the entire time. But now I believe it was like August 17th or something. LeBron James signed his 2-year $97.1 million contract extension that also has a player option, also has a 15% trade kicker. LeBron James is going to be a Laker for the next 2 years. Jeff, what do you think about this? Why didn't you think this happened right away? Is there some maybe backhand deal of like, all right, maybe some Russell Westbrook stuff trade happening, guaranteeing? What do you think took so long to get this deal done?
Honestly, I don't think it's as elaborate as anyone might want it to be. I think it
Okay.
was just LeBron was holding out to see what they'll do, and he tried to use the leverage play to see what will happen. But I'm not even going to think about the LeBron on this one. I'm just going to look at the Lakers, and I'm going to say, man, death kiss again. Another decade of doing the same thing with investing in someone that you ultimately, and I know it's LeBron James, but investing in someone that you don't know if in 2 years it makes sense to give up nearly probably 30, 40% of what your cap is. That is kind of ridiculous because they did the same thing half of last decade with Kobe Bryant when they traded him. I mean, when they signed him for 2 more years, and I believe the contract was like $48 million at that time. Obviously, that looked good because our yeah, I think it was $48 million, around 24 each year or something like that. But at that time, where the salary cap was, that was once again a death wish, like a death's kiss on your team's construction. And it feels like the same thing's gonna happen here. LeBron, like I said, I don't think that he was ever doubting that he was gonna go back to the Lakers. He really just wanted to wait and see out what was gonna happen. He I don't even think he cares about the money necessarily. It's just now with that money, it's like for bragging rights, like he's the highest paid player ever, highest earner in NBA history ever. So like it's like bragging rights, right? But
Yeah.
besides that, like I think he was going to sign it regardless, even if they didn't give him that. I think that the best play would have been to do what LeBron has done in the past in his career, 1+1s. Like just do a bunch of 1+1s with LeBron and let LeBron have his choice at the end of the season, and then you go from there. But now you handicap yourself for the next 2 years, and where now effectively unless if they trade for Kyrie, they will never have Kyrie.
Yeah.
Is the situation now. So
Yeah.
maybe they don't even want him. Maybe that's it. Also,
Yeah, it's just like you said, like, all right, great, you re-sign LeBron. I think no matter what, this was always going to happen. It was a little fishy that it didn't happen immediately, just because, like we're saying, this was a no-brainer. Um, there is reports saying now that like the Lakers are willing to trade both those first round picks that they have in 2077 and 2029. Not necessarily sure what those protections would even look like if they're willing to do unprotected or anything like that. But yeah, it is kind of like interesting now that they're maybe open to it. Maybe the Kyrie thing's still on board. Who knows? Most likely not. Yeah.
I know this guy is not the most reliable source, but Mark Stein actually said that the Nets rejected that as well.
Really?
The
That's funny.
Westbrook plus the 2 picks. So like it's not. We always knew that that was never gonna do it.
Yeah,
We're all
exactly.
just playing this cat and mouse, like realizing, like even with at this point in Westbrook's career, even with a 50% he's gonna play, a 50% you don't know if he's gonna play. Kyrie is still better than what Westbrook could give to you at this point in his career. And it's sad to say it like that, but it's the truth. Is that I
Yeah,
would rather have Kyrie sit out half of a season for me than have Westbrook for a full season.
that's true. Would you so I'd imagine when that offer was happening, if it's true, there's some protections on the pick. Would you even consider if there was two unprotected 2027 and 2029 for the Lakers?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Because you know why I
Yeah.
say no is because the mindset is you're not gonna keep Westbrook, right?
Yeah.
Westbrook is definitely going to be a guy that wants to play, right? So what are you
Yeah.
going to do? You're going to buy him out, right? What are
Yeah.
you going to do after that? You're going to stretch that contract. So now you have to, because to make the Lakers a better team, you have to now add dead cap space to your salary, just because they want
Well,
a guy that
yeah.
at this point is a better player than the other.
Um would you even stretch that though? Because like, I mean, it is expiring at the end of the year, so like, it depends on what the Nets actually
$47
want.
million.
Yeah.
$47 million of dead cap space, even for 1 year. Like,
It is a lot.
is crippling. That's
Yeah.
crippling. That's a lot of
Yeah.
money. Like,
Well, that's where it is. Depends if you're trying to win or
standing.
not.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't know. The whole situation's so weird. The whole situation of even because there was even the rumors that like the Knicks were interested of trading for that Westbrook contract, and it's like I thought they're trying to win, but yet you're saying to like the $47 million. Like I don't. It just doesn't add up. I don't really know who wants them unless like the Spurs just like come in and take them for a pick or something like that. But I don't think the Lakers want to do a dump. We shall see. Do you want to move on to the NBA schedule?
Sure. So, obviously, the schedule has been released this past week. And a lot of interesting stuff that's on that schedule. Opening day is going to be October 18th, and it's going to be headed by the Sixers and the Celtics in the first game. And then you have the Lakers and Warriors, where the Warriors will be getting their rings that night for the night game. Some other interesting games throughout the season and a lot of unveils that will be happening this season is Rivalry Week, which will be a week that pits potential rivalries, obvious, right, against each other, right? That week will be from January 24th to the 28th. I will tell you this, Brian. There's one team that I just don't understand, like why they said this is a rivalry, but apparently the the Warriors and the Raptors are a rivalry. I don't know who made that decision, but apparently they're one of the rivalries that are going to be on that week. A game to look out for definitely is going to be that Sixers versus the Nets during that week,
Yep.
which will be amazing. Then
Mhm.
obviously there's the classic Lakers versus Celtics in that week as well.
Yep.
Um, some other notable news about that is Election Day is going to be universally used as a day to take off for the NBA going forward, it seems like. They will have all their games slated on Monday to help promote going out to vote. And then on November 8th, they will have a day off. And then lastly, we have the Christmas Day games. And it's
Yep.
slated. We got your boys in there, Brian. We got the Knicks and
Yeah.
the Sixers to start off Christmas Day at noon. Then you have the Lakers versus the Mavs at 2:30 Eastern time. And then you have the Celtics versus the Bucks at 5 p.m. And then the Warriors versus Grizzlies at 8 p.m. And then to close out the night, the Nuggets versus the Suns at 10 p.m. And
Yeah.
anything interesting you saw on the schedule that you want to point out?
Yeah. So one, I love the idea of the rivalry week. Like these teams are gonna play like together or against each other throughout the season. We all want to see these matchups, but now you have like a week kind of thing. It makes it so much more fun. It makes it so much more exciting. It's much must watch basketball. Very excited for all that. You did mention of like or the Chicago Bulls and the Hornets. That's kind of a. I didn't know that was really a rivalry. I mean, I know like you have Lonzo and Lamelo and everything, but like I
I
didn't know.
think it's a rivalry because of MJ. like,
Oh,
like
okay. I guess,
I
yeah.
guess that's what they're thinking it is because that's
Yeah.
yeah they've had some interesting ones.
Yeah, like I don't really some of that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I am excited to see like Dallas versus Phoenix, that matchup again. That crazy blowout game of what was like 50 something points. That was that was pretty terrible. Yeah, the Toronto Raptors, Golden State Warriors. I think some of these are a little bit stretches. As we all know, with like the NBA today, there really isn't a whole lot of rivalries. Yeah, I don't know. Teams aren't really like that. It's very rare. Even like I am excited to see Nets versus Knicks, but like even so, that's not. I don't. It doesn't really feel as much as a rivalry as if both teams were actually good at the same time. that's more like it. But I
Oh,
will say, please.
I think this schedule was built with a lot of what ifs,
Yeah.
scenarios that might play off in the offseason. The NBA is keeping in mind that there may be a trade for the Knicks.
So I'd say the only other thing for me that kind of stands out, and you pointed out to it, is like Christmas Day. Of why are the Knicks in there? I mean, I understand, like you saying, the what ifs and everything of potentially a Donovan Mitchell and all that, but I don't know if it doesn't happen or anything like that. It's Knicks probably shouldn't be there, but it's more surprising of like, oh, there's no Nets on Christmas Day. There's no Miami, no Clippers. Like, I just feel like there could be some other teams here that are in some big markets other than the Knicks, which is kind of surprising. As a Knicks fan, I'm like, I like to see it, but it doesn't really make sense as of right now.
Well, then that goes right back into it. I think that the Nets are a big what if too, and that's why they
Yeah.
pulled them from the slate. Because
Mhm.
last year they got that prime time slot last year with the Lakers. Obviously, it was a great game too. We got
It
that
was.
dub. But you see that everyone sees what's going on, and there's just too
Yeah.
much uncertainty. Like we've talked about it when we had Richter on. He talked about it. Uh, Nets have been pulled from books on like
Yeah.
under overs for wins for like playoffs and stuff like that because there's just too much uncertainty with what's going on right now. And the NBA at this point, this deep into the offseason, they couldn't make a good judgment of that if that was going to be a game that would actually be viewed. And
Yeah.
like let's say they did pull the trigger and then boom, 2 weeks from now, you see Katie's trade, boom, you see Kyrie's trade, then you're like, damn, like this was gonna be playing at 8:30 on Christmas Day,
That'd be terrible. Yeah.
like like no one's gonna want to see that.
Yeah. That
And
is
granted, even last year, we didn't even see Katie or Kyrie. We only saw James Harden,
yeah.
So, but it was still a good game. It was
Yeah.
still a good game.
But that's where, I mean, I guess so. Definitely the Nets make sense, but no Miami, no Clippers, especially Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George. Like, I guess it just, like you're saying, there is a lot of uncertainty, makes it very difficult. But I feel at least those two teams, Miami and Clippers, this is most likely probably going to be their rosters. Maybe Miami has a move or two. Who knows what happens? But the Clippers, I don't know, they should be up there in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Like you're saying, it definitely seems like the NBA feels like the Knicks are gonna get Donovan Mitchell because they have like way more like televised games, nationally televised games. Utah's nationally televised games went down a lot. So yeah, it's interesting. The schedule is definitely something that I just want to see them play basketball already. But I'm happy to see they're making it a little bit more fun. Do you want to move on to Chet?
Yes. So, if you don't know by now, Chet Holmgren got injured in his last pro am game. He's actually been playing in a few pro am leagues this summer with Paolo. The biggest headlines for this program was Chet, Paolo, LeBron, and DeJounte Murray for the Seattle's crossover pro am, and it was a transition play where LeBron was coming down the lane and Chet was trying to defend him. And I think that he landed awkwardly on his right foot and he started to limp off the court after that. And obviously, we still don't know the true severity of this injury yet. But it leads me to ask this question and to ask you, obviously, Brian, is what do you think this means or how it could affect even contract negotiations and stipulations in contracts about playing in pro-ams during the summers for players.
Yeah, it could definitely come up in contracts and everything because I don't know, did it ever come up in with like stuff with the Olympics? Because I remember after Paul George, you know, destroyed his leg in that freak accident, um, there was definitely a lot of scare in the years to come.
I know people considered it, but I don't think there was ever truly anything put in place because
Mhm.
I think that precedes the NBA being able to represent your country.
Yeah.
That's why that probably wasn't questioned. But in a pro am, you're taking a lot of risk,
Hmm.
and that's of your own doing. And granted, I am of the I hear or I know there's going to be people that say like, well, what do you want? Like it's their own body. They have the right to make that decision to play in these leagues. Like I understand that completely. But just like when you get a car, you get insurance, there's a few stipulations about whether or not what you can do with those cars. They may never come up when you get that car, right? You may never have an issue with doing those things because it's not like they're standing behind you and telling you, oh, ain't supposed to be doing that. You ain't supposed to be doing that. But when you get into an issue where now you're affecting, where like in with the cars analogy,
Mhm.
where you get into an accident, now you're looking for insurance money, and you've done something that wasn't right, you are in the wrong, and you're not going to get paid. I think that NBA teams are going to start putting those type of stipulations. You know, we don't have a problem with if you decide to do pro-ams, but you understand that there might be a reduction or they might have even the right to void a contract. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen to Chet.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, like, there is going to be some protections that I think that um, we always talk about the CBA coming up, but I think that that's definitely going to be something that owners are going to start weighing, especially if this is a significant enough of an injury for Chet. And if you see guys like, imagine if LeBron got hurt out
Yeah.
there and he just signed the massive contract that he just got, like people would, Lakers would be really upset, is what I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it comes down to what the severity of what Chet's injury really is. Like, if it's nothing, there's probably not really going to be any backlash or anything like that. If it is like a little bit serious and he's going to miss some actual NBA time, then I can really see some teams thinking about something like this. I personally like to see it. Like, I just like to see these athletes do these programs. I actually personally don't watch the games, but I think it's cool for the community, gives people an extra chance to actually watch these players who maybe can't afford actual game tickets and all that. It's really
Mhm.
cool, fun basketball. Um, Definitely, like you're saying, it is risky. There's always a risk. Even, when they're not doing the programs, these players are doing, those runs all the time where the 5-on-5 runs and where you see them at that blackout gym or whatever it's called. They're constantly playing, and people do like tweak and get injured here and there. The only thing is yeah, actually, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about it. I'm not gonna see anything too crazy. The only thing is, does this change your opinion on Chet at all? Of, the injuries seem like pretty routine. Probably this could happen to anybody else, but the narrative with Chet is he's a skinny guy. He's a light guy. He's gonna get pushed easily, and tries to contest LeBron James. Lands a little funky. What do you think?
I'm not even gonna lie. In that play, he held his own though.
He
He
did.
held his
He
own.
did.
The only thing is he came down awkwardly.
Yeah.
And maybe that is because of slighter frame. Who knows? I can't tell you that 100%. I'm not the best with the physics to tell
Yeah.
you if he came down awkwardly or if he came down improperly. So like that's where I say like a little bit of it is like you have to weigh out and realize that I think Chet's good. Like
Yeah.
he's good. Like he's
He
going to
is.
figure it out. He's going to put enough weight. It's crazy we had to have like the same conversation like 10 years plus, 16 years plus now about someone with a slider frame, and we clearly saw a guy with a slider frame become one of the best players in the league. So like it's it's not as alarming to me that he's that skinny
Yeah.
anymore. Like, but you do know that it could lead to some issues because KD did have foot issues earlier in his career, but did it affect his game? No. Like he was still an effective player throughout his career and continuing to his career, even with injuries like that. You know, so I think
Yeah.
he figures it out. His skill set shows that he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Skill set is there. I wonder because you mentioned like Katie and everything. It just even though Katie's in a big boy's body, a tall man's body, like he doesn't play like that necessarily. But Chet's more, if you think about it, like a Porzingis kind of mold, and we see with Porzingis and his type of injuries, and just these super tall guys and lanky guys. Maybe not the most promising sign with that, but it doesn't seem like it's too crazy. I'm sure if it was more crazy, we might be hearing about it now. Let's move on to the Knicks and Donovan Mitchell. So earlier today, we had a report from Shams that, well, even I guess a little bit before that, because we didn't record, of there was a report from Shams again of like a week ago talking about, oh, now the Knicks and the Jazz are re-engaging trade talks and this and that, and it feels like a lot of the a lot of the news getting out there is to really round up and drum up the market for Donovan Mitchell, because it just seems like things have been so slow, and it's just like, all right, they're re-engaging talks, but why are we even reporting this? This isn't really like any news or anything like that. This was seemed like it was going to be routine. Today, it was put out what the Knicks offer is, which is it's Evan Fournier, Obi Toppin, 5 first-round picks, but 2 of them are unprotected. So whether we don't know what the other picks are looking like, but is it some of those crazy picks that they had that they traded for like this year and all that other stuff, and it's really just that the Jazz want way more. And so Mark Berman reported as a few hours ago, we're recording this on a Monday night, that Danny Ainge is after 4 unprotected picks, and that he doesn't really care a whole lot about the players that he gets back, but he wants 4 unprotected first round picks. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
We already knew that that was going to be his mindset. Like,
Yeah.
the guy's known for doing precisely this. Like, it's not like it's out of his wheelhouse to ask for stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just think that it's quite interesting. I think that it's interesting to know or to figure out or realize, well, if it's soul searching time for the Knicks, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you got to weigh it out. How long do you think realistically you will have this guy? And I think this guy guarantees you at least, if he's good enough, he's the type of guy that guarantees that you have at least more than 5, 10 years of like winning
Mm-hmm.
seasons, not saying championships or anything
Yeah.
yet, but like just having him on your roster ensures like from 5 to 10 years of that. So are you in that span of time? Do you think you could spread around 4 picks unprotected that won't realistically affect you that much, right? So like I said, it's a soul searching time. They have to figure out, do you believe that he's the type of guy that warrants or would be able to give you that. So only they
Yeah.
can know. Only
Yeah.
they will tell you.
It's it's exactly like that. Exactly what you're saying. It's a sticky situation because I think everyone knows right now. Can the Knicks trade for Donovan Mitchell? Yes. Does that make them a contender? No. So you think about what's that next move. And that's where we get into this situation where the Knicks really seem like they only want to trade two, maybe even max three for unprotected first round picks. But they still, at the end of the day, want something else so that when the next star is on the market or when something else is on the market, another player that they can get to add onto this, onto this team, they need some assets. And that's where it's like trade everything and and then you're still keeping, at least in that trade, some of your younger guys, but it just, I don't know, it's just not enough. So that's where it's like, do you want to win a championship or do you just want to be like nice and be a cool team to watch? And if you want, because you can have Donovan Mitchell, and it's just that, I guess if you think, I from the Knicks perspective, it might just be like, who are we bidding against kind of thing. It's like, we're the highest
Yeah.
offer. We're probably going to stay the highest offer. Are we matching what you want, your asking price? Not necessarily, but it's either you can keep them, and then that'll be that. I don't know. It's strange.
No, I agree with that, what you said 100%. But I also do think there's the aspect, because you said that if they're going to be nice or something. I think that you have to also play in your mind that this person becomes the building block that brings other talent here,
Yeah.
right? And or attracts other talent here. The saying from first, the what was the movie called? The Field of Dreams, and also the bench warmers. If you build it, they'll come, right?
Yeah.
So same mindset. Like, you bring in a guy like Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks, people will come
Yeah.
because that's a good talent,
Mhm.
And now you're not telling people to come to Utah in this case. You're telling people to come to New York,
Yeah.
and that becomes a lot easier of a sell.
That's always kind of been, well, we hear time and time again, it's like, oh, it's New York, everyone wants to come here. But it's really like, sure, but no one wants to be that first guy. Like, no one wants to be the first one to the party. And if no one else shows up, you're kind of there looking dumb. And that's what it kind of is, of like, it's so it kind of, you can tell like there was some excitement after like the year with Julius Randle and everything, but Julius Randle isn't big enough to really garner enough, or at least a lot of those other people, those free agents, and there wasn't just free agents at that time that were available. And it's just, yeah, if you have to be winning before you can actually get any of these other guys. But that's where it just like, I don't know. I feel like the year or the era of signing free agents or signing a free agent star is kind of gone, just with all these extensions and this and that. Um, it makes it so hard to actually sign a superstar. So that's where as we see now, you got to trade for everybody. Everyone's extended. There's nothing there. It makes it so tough. So what's gonna happen? Who knows? Where, like we've been talking about for all this time, the Kevin Durant situation has kind of just pulled a hold on the entire trade market, and we're almost at training camp now. And it's been this whole free agents period and everything, and still no update, or not much of an update.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little sad, a little bit boring, but basketball is right around the corner. We have preseasons coming up soon, training camp and all that. Very excited for that. That is actually all that I had. There was, there wasn't much for a weekly roundup. I'll actually do it real quick, just because we have a little time. Of Cavs and Mavs. So weekly tidbit: Cavs and Mavs are discussing a signing trade for Colin Sexton. How do you think Colin Sexton on the Dallas Mavericks would look?
What's the point? Like, what's really the point? It's like I thought that I know there's all this fuss about Jalen Brunson leaving,
Yeah.
right? But at the same time, it's like you really need to have three guards. Like, I don't know why they like that idea so much. Like, and what's the point of like bringing Colin Sexton to the fold?
Yeah, maybe you want some more scoring, replace some of that with from Jalen Brunson, and then you got it's you got a disgruntled asset per se. You know, I don't know.
I would say that like it feels more like in my mind that more and more as we're further removed from Jalen Brunson leaving, is that it's like in my mind I would think of it as like addition by subtraction because like if you don't believe that Spencer Dinwiddie is that guy, which then I would beg to
Yeah,
why did you make the trade, right? Um, if that's the case, then why'd you like why'd you even bring him in? Because
yeah.
like the three guard lineup is just not an effective way to go about things. In my
Yeah.
mind at least.
Well, yeah. Now it's definitely turned into a guards or not a guards league, a wings league, and everyone wants your 6'7", 6'9" wings that can play 3-and-D, and the Raptors have them all.
Raptors, man.
Yeah, they were ahead of
Raptors.
their time. They knew this was coming. Too smart. Well, man, it's yeah, that's all I got. I'm actually happy we did this again. We actually kept this in pretty good time, which I am very impressed by us of right now. We're about to hit that hour mark in a bit. But is there anything you want to say before we call it episode 40?
Oh man. Luckily the next episode will not have as big of a break as this last one. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'm ready for the next installment of For the Love of the Game podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know what you guys think. Happy to be back. Yeah, give us a like, subscribe, put more content out there. When we actually have some more news, we're gonna be very excited to be talking some more basketball. But till the next time, really enjoy this one. This has been episode 40.